now. Perfect. All right, and hopefully everyone can see this slide on my screen, just the welcome slide for the Farm Path webinar for the fiscal year 2025 to 2026. To go over the agenda, first we're going to be talking about just the basic program info, program details, and what you can expect throughout the process if you were to participate. And then because it is a grant program, technically, I'll then share information and best practices on how to apply, including our overall timeline for the program. And then lastly, like I mentioned, we will have an opportunity to have questions and answers, and there may be a couple of our program planners on the call as well. So hopefully they can help chime in about anything during the process as well. All right, so start going over Farm Path. So broadly speaking, this is a new program. We were able to launch it earlier this year in the summer with our pilot round with a few farms. It's been in the works for a number of years, so it's exciting to be able to launch it. But in a nutshell, the Farm Path program is a no-cost opportunity for farm owners, family members, and successors to work one-on-one with an experienced planner to create a customized farm transfer plan. And the goal is that this is all happening within the course of about a year. It is designed for farms that do have an identified successor, whether that's within or outside of the farm family, because the idea is that both sets of stakeholders are actively involved in identifying the goals and needs for the farm and the transfer itself. And to that end, the program is really trying to serve those who are ready for an in-depth planning process and committed to making the time to get that done. Lastly, the planning horizon for folks wanting to get involved is fairly broad. We're looking for folks who plan to make that transfer happen within the next 10 years, ideally even a little sooner. But that really constitutes the core audience and eligibility requirements for the program. So give you a sense of what the program and planning process looks like. Like I mentioned, you'll be meeting with a planner frequently over the course of a year, and they do come to you. They're largely meeting with you at your operation, wherever you prefer. And you'll roughly be following our farm transfer plan template as you move through the process. And to give you a sense of what that looks like, the transfer plan template has three main components that I'll go over. They roughly consist of one, just assessing your current situation, two, assessing your goals, and three, planning the transfer itself and the details needed to make that happen. So to go over that first kind of core component I talked about, it really starts with assessing your current situation. This is really just for you to lay the groundwork to identify the people and kind of business conditions that are involved currently, just to know how to get started. So in terms of people, that looks like identifying who are the major stakeholders, what preparations have the owners and or successors made already up to this point. And then otherwise, knowing who else is on your team to make this transfer happen, what other advisors and service providers are going to be there to help you fill in the gaps over the years. And then as far as the business goes, just identifying simple things like what is the current management structure of the business? Also doing some baseline assessments of the financial picture of the business, going over documents like a balance sheet, historical profit and loss, income statements. These are all things just to, like I said, lay the groundwork and get a hold of the information that you're working with. Secondly, assessing your goals. This really just looks like, for current owners, what is your retirement vision? How involved do you want to be or not to be moving forward? There are a couple of things, a lot of things that are going to go into this, but it's really just identifying what is important to you as you start to exit out and what needs to happen to meet those goals. And then similarly for identified successors, what is your incoming vision for the land and the business? What are your financial needs and abilities to get that done? And importantly, are there any significantly different goals between the parties? Are there any challenges posed by the current business model? These are all things you'd be expected to talk through and hopefully reconcile as you move towards an eventual transfer. All right. And once those goals have been shared and discussed, you'll start moving through the finer details of the transfer process. So discussing how and when you'll be shifting management responsibilities, for instance, doing those detailed financial analyses. And then, it could also look like discussing any land use changes and whether farm conservation, land conservation is part of your goals and your picture moving forward. So all of this will start to culminate in your written farm transfer plan. And with that plan, you'll also be working up a next steps action table to help organize who's going to manage each task moving forward and when. It'll be especially helpful in directing any follow-up you'll need to do with an attorney or a tax professional, because as a reminder, your farm transfer planner is neither of those things in this process. They're not your lawyer, they're not your accountant, they are not able to provide legal or tax advice through this process. However, they will help you identify concrete steps to work on with those types of professionals to make the transfer happen in an action plan table, but they're not going to be providing that strict legal or tax advice. It's kind of going to be the nebulous of everything else that makes that stuff happen. So, and like I said, that kind of concludes the portion going over the program itself. There are hopefully planners on the call here that can help answer questions about that during the Q&A, as well as myself and Melissa. But I'm going to move forward onto the grant application process itself now. So because FarmPass is a competitive grant program, it means it's awarded through a request for response process, otherwise known as a RFR. So just to keep in mind, you're going to be if you're interested in applying, this is how you're going to do it through the RFR. If you're familiar with other grants through the department or other agencies, this is just the way that we take applications. So the request for response for each program includes the program purpose and description. It includes the eligibility requirements and selection criteria. It includes the estimated timeline for the program. And it does include the application form itself, as well as instructions for submission. Note that eligible applications received are evaluated by a review team based on selection criteria identified in the RFR, and all applicants are notified in writing about reward decisions, whether that's positive or negative. The FarmPass RFR and application are available at all times on our webpage, our Agricultural Business Assistance webpage. And I believe Jess just put that link in the chat if you'd like to check it out. And do also note that for this program, as well as any other MDAR grant application, translations can be made in a variety of languages upon request. And there's a link for that as well that I believe is in the chat now as well. And hopefully this is just like a helpful set of tips when it comes to applying and looking through grants, especially when it comes to MDAR. When you're looking through the RFR itself, there are a few good things to keep in mind. First of all, are you eligible to apply? It's just a matter of checking out that box at the front of the RFR, making sure you meet those core eligibility requirements before you take the time to fill out an application. It's good to gauge whether, reading through the program description, if this is a good fit for your farm needs, especially based on those eligibility criteria. And then just to make a note of what is going to be required of you as you fill out the application, what signatures are required, if there's any other farm details or maps. When it comes to the FarmPass program, we're not asking a whole lot of you in the application. It's only a few pages, and we're really just requiring that you all farm owners and identified successors are signing. We're not requiring any supplementary information at this time. But once you do those things and you're looking through the RFR and you're ready to fill it out, just make sure that you're doing so legibly, clearly. Make sure you allow enough time to get an application and any additional documents done by the review deadline. And just make a note of how you're going to be submitting it. There are a couple ways to do that for this program. Mainly, it's going to be emailing myself, or you can mail it in at any time as well if you'd rather do that. But those are just kind of helpful tips for applying for grants at the department. Um, and then just to give you a sense of our timeline. So, like I said, this RFR is technically for the fiscal years 25 and 26. We're in fiscal year 2025 right now, even though it's still 2024. But like I said, this RFR is posted at all times. It is a rolling RFR, so you are able to submit at any point in time. But we do have select review deadlines that we start reviewing by. Those next ones are coming up on January 15th and April 15th, 2025. So if you submit an application before that time, it will get reviewed by that deadline with that batch. Notifications to applicants are roughly expected to go out about 4 to 6 weeks later. We're hoping for, pretty tight turnarounds on these, with the idea being to start working with a planner either in the spring or the summer of 2025, depending on which review deadline you make it by. And then once that process starts with your planner, you're going to be starting the one-on-one meetings between you guys roughly every month for the next 12 months. And each of these processes are capped at about 1 year of participation. So all plans are expected to be completed within a year, either by spring or summer 2026, depending again on when you submit by. And just to note, the RFR up to now does extend into the next year through fiscal year 2026. And we do expect to have similar review deadlines available next year as well. So this RFR is going to be open for over a year, and there will be several chances to apply and hopefully get started. And I just wanted to mention as well, because our eligibility requirements do state that an identified successor needs to be part of the process. It might be the case that this is not the right step for you right now. It could be for that reason. It could be that you're not quite ready to dive in. Whatever the reason, I just wanted you to know that there are other resources that can help you with farm transfer planning at this point. Not that, that can help you lead up to a farm participation or not. But there are other opportunities. And so Succession School is that first bullet there. It's a course hosted by Land for Good, co-sponsored by MDAR. It's meant as more of a peer learning environment. It's a group-oriented class that happens over the course of 3 full days. It's really designed to help you start working through those initial steps of succession planning before you fully dive into a process or even start working with a successor on it. You don't have to have a successor to go through that class, although you can. We had a wonderful class happen this past year in the Berkshires this winter, and now this year, or next year rather, we are moving across the state. It's going to be hosted in Taunton over the course of 3 Mondays starting on January 27th. So if you are interested in checking that out, I believe the link to that is in the chat now as well. There's a registration link for Land for Good. And if you're not familiar with Land for Good, they're a New England-based nonprofit with field agents in all 6 states. They're wonderful. If you are not quite ready for Succession School yet either, you just want to start looking into resources, start talking to somebody, they do offer free 1-hour consultations to get started. There's a website there, there's a number there. They're just great people to kind of start broaching this topic with, as it can be difficult to start, and we do recognize that. So they're great people to have a relationship with in this space. And then lastly, I did want to mention it because we do manage these programs, the viability grant programs. If you're not familiar with them or haven't participated, all 3 grant programs, including the Farm Viability Enhancement Program, the APR Improvement Program, and the Matching Enterprise Grants for Agriculture, all 3 of those involve a business planning process as well as a grant. and you can get no cost succession planning assistance through that process. So there are a lot of ways to start engaging with this, especially with opportunities that are relatively affordable or no cost to you. So I just wanted to put that out there. Here is our contact information. Like I said, I'll be sending out these slides so you don't have to scribble anything down in a hurry, but if you would like to call or email us at any time with any questions, please feel free. We're happy to talk through any of these resources with you, as well as any other details about the program. So just make note of that, and feel free to look at any of our grant programs as well. So with that, I think that the presentation portion has concluded. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.